Hey, well, I want to thank you all for coming. It's quite an honor to be speaking. Like Stephen mentioned, I am one of the founding members, and this is my first time speaking at Azima, so hey. This is a little different. We have the opportunity to have Google here as a live hangout, and with Hangouts, just never know. There's always a lot of dynamics going on, but the inspiration for this presentation came in November of 2016 at a Google Developers Conference. They were talking about progressive web apps. Does everyone know what a progressive web app is? Few people in the room. And Google AMP. Is anyone using Google AMP in the room? A few people, okay. So it was interesting that they were rolling out in November that's the one. That's it. They were rolling out the spec for progressive web apps, which is essentially this application that will work offline. And what Google announced at this was that they were planning to bring on 1 billion new users. How are they going to do that? In like third world countries. So the whole premise was, in order to bring on another 1 billion people, the internet needs to change. Sounds pretty good. And progressive web apps are this lightweight application that's essentially a website and an app in one, and it even works offline. And then they got edgy enough to say that their plan was to make YouTube work offline in third world countries on crappy mobile phones. So it got our attention. We're like, what's going on here? And then they talked about, right side by side with this really cool technology, Google AMP. Accelerated mobile pages in this new phenomenon. So we have the privilege of having Richard Rondon and Maggie Luddington from Google. They're going to be joining us in a few seconds here on a Google Hangout, and they're going to tell us what's going on in Google. So let me talk about me. Now, some of you know me. I play hockey. I had the fortunate of starting my career winning the Illinois State Championship and finished my career in Illinois winning the high school championship. And then comes beer league. I didn't realize that there was such a phenomenon of hockey players out here, but I should know it because the year I moved out here, the Coyotes moved from Winnipeg. And there's a lot of really good hockey players here in town. So I bring this up because this was our beer league championship team. Other than our jerseys not matching, is there anything odd about this picture? Well, yeah, we're not that smart. What's that? Good point. Yeah, hockey is played with 5 people on the ice and a goalie, and we have 7. That big guy, he hurt himself. So we're like, we don't have the skills or the talent, but we're role players. We know our role. And that's totally what digital marketing is all about. I don't know about you guys in the room, but I don't have the budgets to work with to go after the big companies. We have to be strategic, laser focused, and very succinct in our marketing strategy. We have to know our role and our niche. And if we can figure that out, we can be successful and sometimes win things that we never thought. Imagine 7 guys showing up for the playoffs. We're like, dude, what's going on? So tonight, we're going to talk about Google AMP. I already asked people, and it doesn't sound like a lot of people know what Google AMP is all about. It was designed as a lightweight framework that would run super fast on mobile, and it was essentially accomplishing 2 things: speed and user experience. We know there's a lot of web junk out there, really bad websites. It needs to change. And remember, Google wants to bring on 1 billion new users, so they needed, that didn't sound good. That sounds like the Hangout didn't work. Well, we'll worry about that in a second. So one of the things as a takeaway tonight is to let you realize that the internet and the mobile experience is changing a little bit. And whatever your mobile strategy and digital strategy is, you may want to rethink some of the things that are going to be brought up tonight. one of the things that I think you all can figure out is a pretty simple way to get a competitive advantage in Google AdWords. And there are just some simple tricks that seem to make a big difference. And then lastly, once we've heard about this kind of new direction, and we actually helped with some of the spec writing for the progressive web app, we started to experiment because Google has a bunch of statistics and this was kind of new. So we did a bunch of campaigns and ran some experiments, and we call them failure hacking. Let's fail early, fail fast and often. And then somewhere in there is some truth. We call that the truth mapping. And then we can start having fun because we can have some predictive success. Now, this is the point when I am going to bring on Google. So I think they're still here. Yes.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Is that nice and loud for you? Sorry.
So this is Richard Rondon and Maggie Luddington from Google, and you guys have the stage.
Awesome. Thank you. Hope everyone's doing well. Looks like everybody's enjoying dinner and a few drinks. So just appreciate the time with being in front of all you guys. Just kind of want to cover a few items that's going to kind of tie in with Matt's presentation. We're going to focus more on mobile through AdWords. So as he mentioned, I'm Richard Rondon. Got Maggie Luddington here. We're agency development managers through our partnership. And just kind of wanted to go in and just kind of start this off with basically how most of us start our days. I don't know about you guys, but this is basically me. In the morning, my wife would be next to me, and our phones are basically our alarm clocks. I get on, check social, or check news, weather, all of those items. My wife's on social media, and I mean, we're basically tethered to our phones from the moment we wake up to the moment we lay down. And this is, we basically touch our phones about 150 times a day. So, now we're seeing as far as, the iPhones and Samsung Galaxy 8, all of these, people with the uproar about, hey, it's coming out $1,000, but, their kickback is, this is basically eliminating laptops, desktops, calculators, scheduling. It's everything in one. So again, this is our go-to device from the moment we wake up to the moment we lay down. If you ask me and a lot of people that have children, millennials, there are two modes. They're either asleep or they're online. And so, it's just really showing you the power of mobile and that emphasis that, we need to make sure we're ahead of that consumer. So we've finally hit the trillions. So, over 2 trillion. So now we're in the trillions. Our small little company here, Google, we are seeing 2 trillion searches every year. That's quite a bit.
Appreciate all you do.
Seeing over half of those are done on mobile. And now we're seeing it's closer to about 70% of searches are actually done on mobile. So again, just tying in the emphasis of making sure we are, mobile friendly, landing pages, websites, and, just the speed, which we'll kind of tie into. So we have these, it's 4 different categories for micro moments. So I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy. So it's really just going to kind of depend on where you are and where your consumer is in the sales funnel, right? So we want to look and see, I want to know moments. We're seeing 66% of the smartphone users are actually going to their devices while they see an ad or a commercial. So we're seeing this as far as, a spike in TV. During TV commercials, we're seeing a spike in mobile device use. So people are, sending emails, reading emails, they're texting, they're calling, they're on social media. Or as here, you can see they're looking up that TV commercial that you just saw. I want to go moments 2 times. We're seeing twice the amount of searches done near me, as opposed to what it was last year. So being there as far as if you're a pizzeria, hey, pizza shops near me, hotels near me. So we want to make sure that we're using those keywords in there. I want to do moments. 91% of smartphone users using their mobile phones during a task. So again, whether you're looking how to do something, how to change your alternator, or anything that you're doing, you automatically go to your phone. We're not going to wait. Hey, I'm just going to go to my desktop. Everything's just accessible right at the touch of your hand. I want to buy moments. This is going to be 29%. We're seeing conversions. This is where search really comes into place, is conversions. That's where all the conversions happen. So, we want to make sure that, again, noticing that 29% increase, it's only getting stronger and higher every single year. So we want to make sure we're being there, being useful, being quick. We are definitely not brand loyal anymore. So we're seeing, about 51% smartphone users, they're finding a new product or new company, while they're conducting search. So this is whether we're on search or whether we're on our Google display platform. So again, almost 50, more than half of new companies and new product are being found on doing these searches.
So some key questions to ask yourself. Make sure that you're considering the most searched topics for your brand or category, whether that might be HVAC or lawyers or whatever it might be. Make sure that you're paying attention to those topics, and try those searches on your desktop, and then try the searches on your phone and see what the difference is there. And is it more accessible on your desktop, or is it more accessible on your phone, or are they two totally inaccessible websites? So that's just something that you really do need to pay attention to.
And then, we're noticing 1 in 3 smartphone users, they're purchasing from a company that, they didn't even have any information. They weren't necessarily looking for the specific company, but that company was ahead of the fold, or, getting that awareness in front of them. So again, tying into not being brand loyal anymore, it's basically making sure that we are at the top of the page. 46%, increase as far as brand awareness, making sure that, again, emphasis on showing up for mobile search. So, can't preach it enough, making sure, driving that brand awareness, and just making sure that we are in front of, the targeted clientele that you want. So making sure we're knowing, hey, this is what they're looking for. This is what the consumer is looking for. This is where we're targeting affinity audiences, topic targeting, in segment people that are actually looking for the product, our systems reading, hey, these are the buying signals. So here, being useful. So 51% have bought a brand from, again, kind of going back to not being brand loyal. 51% smartphone users noticing that they are not purchasing from somebody that they were intentionally wanting to purchase from. 61% smartphone users are seeing that the companies that they're purchasing was because they customize their landing pages, they customize the websites designed around them. So, making sure we're driving that relevant traffic.
And a thing that you want to ask yourself again, this is always just reflection on making sure that you're doing the right thing. Make sure that you're helping consumers find those nearby branches or locations for pizza, let's just say. Hopefully they're not on the phone while they're driving home from work, but it inevitably happens. But they need to pick up dinner. So they're looking for those nearby locations right when they're on their phone, right when they need it.
And this is the big one, being quick. So aside from us not being brand loyal, we are very impatient as a society. So some of these numbers are actually raising. I mean, we're getting around 50% of people are abandoning, they're leaving the website if it's taking longer than 3 seconds. I can tell you, over 10, 15 years ago, I was happy if something loaded within 5 minutes. I mean, now, 3 seconds is absurd. But again, we're looking at pretty much every second that goes by, you're losing an additional 10 to 15% of the clients. So, and then, about a third of them, we're seeing that they're just immediately just hopping onto another site. There's so many competitors out there. Why should they wait? And then 1 in 5 are actually will never return.
So you need to ask yourself again, how long does it take your site to load, especially on mobile?
This really is just very important. The mobile speed, again, can't reiterate it enough. Speed as well as the friendliness, making sure you're mobile friendly and making sure it's fast. And there's tools out there that will help you, test your site and make sure that you guys are up to speed and you can see, the performance. And we do give details on how to make it a little faster. So this portion here just kind of ties everything together. When we do these presentations, when we speak with clients, this one is, I feel like most people, some of them are wowed, some are, makes them kind of think where we actually are putting our money. So this is breaking up the media spend and media consumption. So we're seeing people are still spending a little over 10% on newspapers, about 9% on magazines, but we're only consuming 1% on newspapers, 1% on magazines. Radio is actually up a little bit, 9% spend, a little over 10.5% consumed. TV is down a little bit, so almost 38 versus 36, and we feel you've got a lot of streaming, Hulu, Netflix, so that's kind of taking a little dip, as well as again what we kind of talked about as far as people doing other items during during these commercials, or as I have little ones, we DVR everything, so we're just kind of skipping through it all. The big one though is we're only spending about 25% on digital and we're consuming 43%. So again, it's just kind of seeing where is your budget, and with digital, it's able, we're data driven, so we can track everything. When you look at newspapers, magazines, we can go ahead, we can alternate things on a drop of a dime in digital, as opposed to waiting, a month or, billboards. But the biggest thing is tracking. So the measurements, the tracking. If you are doing newspapers and magazines and it's working for you, great. The old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, is very true. So if you can measure it and you can see, hey, this is working, then that's great. It's just, looking back and saying, okay, tell me, let's analyze it and let's see where are we spending our money, and maybe we should be, allocating in different areas.
So we are moving on to the Q&A portion. Matt was nice enough to collect some questions for us that we can answer. The first one pertains to the new beta version of AdWords. This is our new AdWords interface that we have launched on some of our accounts. Some of them have not transitioned over yet, but the goal, as with technology, it might have a little glitch here and there, but the goal that we have is by the end of Q1 to have everyone changed over to the new AdWords interface. So if you haven't messed around in there, I highly, highly suggest that you familiarize yourself with it, because you won't have a choice come the end of Q1.
And I don't know who brought this up, but hopefully, do you know how to actually go back to the old interface? Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, moving forward, anything new that we're building will launch in the new interface. But again, as Maggie said, end of Q1, it'll basically, it should eliminate. It's digital. Everything's always changing. So we like to say end of Q1, but it could be a little later.
Yeah. And it really is very user friendly, but it does take some time. Just get your hands in there, get dirty, and you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly.
All right, there was another one that was, is there a way to change the max CPC limit on AdWords grant account from $2 max bid? And unfortunately, the answer is no. That is set in stone for grants.
And the last one that we have, what's the best wording for ads? You guys got to get a little bit creative. This is what you're paid to do. But the key thing that Google AdWords pays attention to is the wording, the keywords that you have in your AdWords should also appear in your ad and should also be relevant to your landing page. They all tie in together. But as far as getting creative with your ads, you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit. But we can definitely help you out when it comes to making things relevant to your landing page, to your ad that appears, and also tie in those keywords to everything. So does that answer your question, whoever submitted that? Okay.
One of my team members likes to call it the trifecta. So if that helps a little bit, it's great. I mean, again, that's going to get you the best quality score and be able to help you lower your CPC, cost per click or cost per view, quicker. But again, if we can leave you with one word that sums up AdWords, it's relevant. We want to make sure we're driving the most relevant traffic to your site. And I think that's about it for our portion here. So we appreciate the time. And if you do have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Matt and his team. And, we can definitely, help with any one-on-ones in the future.
Hey, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Do you guys want to stay on, or do you want to cut this off?
No, we're going to jump off.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Have a great night.
All right. Well, that answers that. All right. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So think you already saw my slide, but I'm going to tease it anyways. Are mobile phones reliable? No. They are? I don't know. What kind of phone do you have? iPhones. All right, I got a story for iPhones. So, this mobile phone, it's, as we learned and they shared with us, it's a huge direction, but there are things that happen that we can't control on a mobile device. And we seem to think that it's ubiquitous. All phones work, and they work all the time. And there are factors that really have an impact on the phone. Solar flares, right? Taking out, who's had their phones drop more in the last couple weeks? But we have mountains, we have all of this stuff. They're very unreliable. And they had mentioned that, it used to be 7 seconds, and now it's 3 seconds. Or is it 3 seconds? We want pages to load in 3 seconds, right? That seems pretty fast. It's not fast enough. It's not 7, it's not 3, it's less than 2. The expectation is that you're going to lose 50% of your traffic if your page doesn't load within 3 seconds. Seems ridiculous, doesn't it? How many pages out there load that fast? So let's ask the question, what is the average speed that a mobile phone-driven page on the web loads in? Not fast enough. That's good. You're going to be shocked because I didn't hear anywhere close. Well, 10 seconds is what 73% of the pages load longer in. It's 19 seconds. 19 seconds, now I'm going to, caveat is it's G3. And why in the world are we talking about G3? It's because these things are not reliable. You can be going around and it's going to go to another deal. And someone might be searching your product or trying to fill out a form and the thing drops. So here's what's crazy about this. Why are they so slow? Because 214 server connections from the page back to the server, it's causing it to slow down. And look at this. If 77% of pages are taking over 10 seconds to load, but here's the thing, half of those pages, people are spending money for you to go to it. Do you see an opportunity here? My gosh, it's like, let's just flush money down the toilet. It's crazy. This is what we're dealing with. And so here's the deal. Why is it so slow? It's because 70% of the world is dealing with G3. So if we get outside of just Arizona and we think about the U.S., yeah, we're a privileged nation, but there's still some spots in the U.S. where we're dealing with G3. But the rest of the world, it's 70%. And here's the bad news. It gets even worse. We're going to be dealing with this until 2020. This whole paradigm shift of the Google changing the world and making the internet better by launching this new technology, we're not here yet. So we're still dealing with this. And I don't know about you, but have you ever noticed that this thing gets a little hot? It gets hot. Why does it get hot? Well, let's see. I got a lot of apps, got a lot of pictures. My wife, she's got probably 100,000 videos of the cats and the pictures. And she keeps having to delete apps to save up room. And I'm like, you got Google Photos? They're all there. Well, I want them on my phone. We have this addiction, and it gets hot. So at this Google Chrome Developers Conference, this was awesome. The smart guy said, I'm going to figure something out. I got it. I know what we're going to do. We're going to put it on ice. So they took a phone and they put it on ice to see if it would slow down. Got faster. The speed, connection, everything worked better. So who in here has an iPhone? Okay, I was skiing with some buddies and it was really cold. And their phones weren't working. My phone worked. So somewhere in between hot and cold is this perfect paradigm. So if you haven't figured it out by now, there's an inconsistency with phones. We have to deal with that. So Google mentioned, who's used this test? All right, most of the people in the room. Who subscribes to Think with Google? I mean, some of the best information out there, right? It's amazing. So if you haven't used this, test my site, thinkwithgoogle.com. Go there, sign up if you haven't. It's great. So we can see how bad the pages are that we're trying to promote to get leads. Okay, fair enough. Which leads us to Google AMP. So there is this whole idea of making the experience better because it needs to get better. We're going to continue to grow, and there's a lot of bad information out there, a lot of bad websites. So let's take a look at how an AMP page works versus a regular landing page. So we're going to say that the average page loads in 7 seconds. And the Google AMP page loads in less than a second. So we click on the ad, bam, page loads. And why is that? It's because it's a stripped down version of what it was before. And here's what happened when Google forced large media companies to use Google AMP. They weren't very happy because guess what happened? Their advertising revenue went like this. And they're like, that's not cool. We got to make this better. So this was version 1. And not a lot of you have been testing Google AMP pages, but you can kind of see that there's a lot going on in that other one. Back to the server, redirects, landing, boom, we're trying to get all this stuff going. And so this is kind of a really slow simulation. This probably would go a little faster, but I go to Google, I do a search, there's my result, boom, okay, want to click on that, going to go to the page. Now see the lightning bolt and the AMP. So who has seen those? The content's everywhere. It's even showing up on Facebook. So boom, we're going to click on the ad, and that's supposed to be 1 second or less than. Now we're loading. Now here was the problem with version 1 of Google AMP, is either the content loaded and some of the ads loaded, and they were complaining because they weren't getting the revenue, and it was a little bit clunky. So version 1 came out, and they're like, it's great because it's fast. And guess what? These were the other statistics that they came up with. You're going to get a 250% conversion rate. Well, the media companies were saying BS. That's not true. We're not believing it. So the smart people at Google decided that we can make AMP better. But first, let's go back to the basics. We're still better than those crappy pages that are taking 19 seconds to load on a mobile site. And the new ranking algorithm for Google is essentially, we want a good user experience, it needs to be fast, and it needs to be reliable, consistent. So with spotty internet connections, with spotty, page speed and too many 214 requests to a server, that's unreliable, that's unrealistic. But the other things that kind of came up with this experiment is that, we're in the business for conversions to make money. That's what we care about. And we have to look and see what is causing poor conversions. And if we can fix a simple application like a page that we're going to and make it faster, we would think that conversions get better, especially when we're dealing with our competition, which has slow loading, poor responsive pages, and essentially, content shifting. And those are the experiences that people are going to leave. So last week, Google talked about fast fetch. Guess what? They fixed all of the other issues that were going on with Google AMP. Fast fetch essentially gives the following. The article's great, but who's familiar with global caching? So what they've done is they've decided that if you get an AMP certified page and you're also on the display network, we're going to store these around the world. And you're going to have a really, really fast experience. If you're here in the US and someone in China is loading this page, it's going to load in China, native. You used to have to pay Google an Amazon and places a lot of money for this, and they're giving it away for free on Google AMP. Do you think that's an advantage? It makes sense. Here's the other cool thing. Here's fast fetch. So they've solved that problem where the page would load, and then 1 ad, 2 ad, 3 ads would load. Now fast fetch is just like that. So if we look at this, we think about this is the direction of the new web. It's lightweight, fast framework. And so the question you should all be asking yourself, don't believe me, don't believe Google, they're just trying to make money off of us, right? Do people really care about AMP? Is it something that they're going to click on? Well, if we're going to get an advantage like this, it's 2.7 seconds faster than even the best page out there. You got to think that that's one of those things you're like, whoo, wow, that was fast. So I believe it. But here's the problem, is that if we have a bad experience, people remember it. And if we have a good experience, it works for you as well. So 89% of people with a good experience are going to think about that brand and say, yeah, that was great. But 2/3 of your advertising audience are going to say, not coming back if they have a bad experience. So think about that. That's a huge number. That is a huge impact on your advertising. Do you guys believe that? So we did a little validation because we wanted to make sure that it was really true that people cared about AMP. And believe it or not, over 50% of people are more likely to click on an AMP page than any other page because they know it's going to load fast. They know it's going to be a good experience. So we're getting these consistencies. So I had to go out of the room before this presentation because my presentation got censored by Google. See if you can figure out why. So this is a massage place in New York City, and they were trying to figure out why they weren't getting calls or appointments. They were having a problem, so we came in to see if we could help out. And so we, one of the best places in AdWords is you go in and you look in the keywords, and then you look at the search terms, and you see what they're searching for. So, around me, but, you may have a connotation with massage parlors and the type of ending that you're looking for. So I went back to the client. I'm like, do you know you're bidding on this term? Like, I didn't think you were that kind of place. They're like, we're not. So I'm like, all right, well, let's, no, okay, we're good. So I looked at the ads, and there was a question about the ads, and Google didn't really get into it. But so those first terms were, it seemed like people were looking for like around me, right? Now, if you read this ad, does this match those type of searches? Let's read it. Massage for a life more lived, start becoming stress-free, massage, help you do more of what you love, design a massage session around. Okay, so this is selling the benefit of a massage, right? But those ads were talking about, I want to know, I want to go, I want it now, right? So we had a mismatch here. So we looked a little further, and we're like, yeah, these are all the terms that they're searching for. Now, there was a lot of wrong things there. That one had something to do with men looking for other types of men in a certain erotic type of experience. And I went back and I'm like, you guys into this stuff? And they're like, no. We were wondering why people were like, yeah, I want the gay man couples massage. I saw you advertising it. We're like, huh? So, the search term part of AdWords, you really should pay attention to this because this is where you manage the account. You see what you're bidding on over here and what actually people are clicking on. So that was just a freebie. First time I've been censored by Google. Won't be the last. So we decided to run some experiments, and so we started with, let's look at a shopping cart experience. This was a big commerce website that the client came to us and said, we're doing well, but I think we can do better. I think we're missing something. So the problem was that there was 50% of their traffic coming from a mobile device, but only 20% of their sales were occurring. So, the geniuses were like, this is a great place to test AMP. So we're like, okay, let's validate if the user experience is bad on this e-commerce, which happened to be BigCommerce, but plug in any e-commerce site. So we did a speed test. Let's see how fast this page is in 9 seconds. According to Google, we're losing about a third of our traffic. So, okay, our assumptions are close. We're going to do some failure hacking. So let's look at the baseline metrics. We know that 50% of the traffic's coming from desktop, 50% is mobile. We ran a split test, and we were looking at the sales, which we know that 20% was mobile. We can do better. So we wanted to estimate through experiments of what was the estimated loss of these poor performing landing pages. Okay, makes sense. So we did find the truth. We found some success here. Month 1 and 2, with our experiment, we saw a 250% increase in sales from this. We're like, okay, can it get any better? It did. We got up to 400% increase. So we're like, it's not going to sustain itself. It has. It's actually continued. So what we ended up doing is we took one of these little products in the system. We built an API. We pulled all the product data out and built a nice lightweight AMP. And actually, it's a little bit of a progressive web app in there because this thing works offline. And we just built a simple landing page. But the reality is, it was just a fast loading page. So we continued with these experiments, and we now know that his competition is not even close to doing any of this stuff. And we see gold in this opportunity. So guess what we're doing? We're recreating all of the products into this new framework. Here's what has been running. So he's consistently at a 400% increase in conversions on mobile, but now his sales in mobile is 30% versus 20%. So that's one for AMP e-commerce. So then we went to an experiment to see how it would work in lead generation, because it can't be that easy. So we did the same thing. What's the problem? The problem is that he wants more leads, but he doesn't want to spend more. You ever heard that before? I want more leads, but I'm going to spend the same amount of money. Okay, gotcha. So we validated, is the user experience bad? We would seem to think so. So page wasn't so bad, 8 seconds, but still enough to be considered not even 7. And we ran our baseline metrics. We knew that in this case, 70% of traffic was coming from mobile. And the split test was going to be essentially the same deal. And we looked at the lead gen campaigns. But the key here is, we've done these before when we picked a real loser product, the one that, isn't a lot of searches. You got to take your champion campaign. And we had to talk them into it because, I don't want to jeopardize, and it's not working real well right now. What are you jeopardizing? So the failure hacking we had to go through was taking a look at load time, how many number of pages are being viewed, things like time on site, simple things that you can measure. Was it working? Now, it's interesting to note here that people spend more time on Google AMP pages. Did you know that? Has anyone tested Twitter Lite? The Twitter Lite app? No one in the room has used Twitter Lite? Oh my gosh. Okay. Twitter created a whole new version of their app, which is in a progressive web app, super lightweight framework, and they were like, nobody's going to use it. Guess what? It's fast, doesn't clog up the phone. Their user experience went up. people spend more time on the app. So there was this consistency. I switched from Progressive Web App to AMP because I think they're both similar. And here's what happened with this lead experiment. 250% increase in conversions in month 1. Like, it can't get any better? It did. We're running at a 500% increase in conversions. And the competition is nowhere to be found in this. And the truth is that we have a predictive model for success. We did exactly what the client wanted us to do, which was, I want more leads without spending any more. But here's what happened. Our cost per click went down, our quality score went up, and we had a lower cost per conversion. Everything seemed to work well in the Google algorithm that nobody really understands how they come up with this bidding matrix in AdWords. But we do know this. There seems to be some favoritism to Google AMP pages, and now we learned that the fast fetch version is out there. It's pretty good. So this wasn't a wickedly awesome performing campaign to begin with. So like one of those things, it was kind of a not doing very well, but it looks pretty good now at a 550% increase in conversions, and our conversion rate isn't ridiculous, 2.8%, and our cost per click, they were spending a lot of money on conversions. So it's not like we have to do a lot of magic here. It's just that this was something that, we're like, okay, now let's look at maybe the messaging can get better. So, just starting with this, sometimes we pick things that aren't doing very well just to see if something as easy as page speed can make a difference. And it did. So that's it. You guys have any questions? Yes.
So I've been following this a lot lately, and it's making me think that I might want to chuck WordPress type-based sites and go to flat site architectures like some of these other platforms that I'm starting to see, which are HTML-based single call renders. And I guess eventually e-commerce will come along, but is that what you're starting to suggest?
Yeah, half of the web runs on WordPress, and it's pretty slow. And Google, we haven't tried the AMP plugin for WordPress. I'm not exactly sure how well it works. It's much easier to go down the road that you're going down, which is build a lightweight framework that has the compliance in AMP. And yeah, I think that what we're doing with WordPress is we use it as a content publishing engine, but we publish to a better page. We don't use the WordPress framework. So for managing content, it's pretty tight. It can't get much better. You can manage and do everything in it. But yeah, create a better version of that page somewhere else, because I don't think the future is WordPress. Good question. Anyone else? Yes? It's just a framework that you just need to comply. It's like a certification. You run an AMP test. You can start with downloading the browser in your app, and you can see how many AMP pages are out there. But it's just a spec that you need to design to. It's pretty simple. I mean, if you're on WordPress, you can you can start with the AMP plugin. I haven't used it. I'm sure it probably works. I'm questioning. It's stripping down. It's a different version of the page. You're not going to get all the same aspects there. So you got to get used to, playing with less. And I think in our case, we've learned that less is better. Yes? Actually, that's not correct. You're not displaying both. You're committed to AMP, or you're committed to your old page that won't have the AMP certification on it. But you won't be serving up to. It was more of a comparison between, I have all of these pages to click to. This one has an AMP certification. So we found that AMP certified pages with the lightning bolt, circle, or the AMP gets more clicks. Everywhere. Well, on your news feeds, so maybe, yeah, is it only in a Google search? Yeah, sorry. That's right, I had to think about that. Well, one thing, we don't need to worry about Safari, but Safari is actually, they are changing their browser. They were the last to go into essentially the AMP framework, which is, you guys are going to be learning about that, which is I'm drawing a blank right now. But there's a way for the offline experience to work. It's lazy loading process. So as far as all of the other browsers though are, you're not going to have a compatibility issue because it's a stripped down version of HTML. It's really what it is. So it works in all browsers. But yeah, you won't see the AMP symbol. See, they want you to use Google. Sure.
So I really like the slide they shared about media consumption.
Yeah, they all like that. That's their favorite. They always get a lot of buy-in on that.
So I think what's interesting about it, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, is this is an interactive marketing organization. They're Google. They're telling you things like 42.8% of media is consumed on digital, and the spend is not aligned with that. If this was an organization that was just for outdoor or radio, their organizations would all give you stats. And I have friends in radio that say radio still penetrates 105% of people still get radio. They have all these numbers that would say radio is still amazing, relevant, it reaches everybody everywhere all the time. How do you kind of cut through that clutter that obviously Google kind of has a vested interest in making sure people understand that eyeballs are in digital and the spend isn't there yet, but when radio and TV and outdoor all tend to be the same thing, how do you cut through that to actually, as a marketer, make the right decision?
Who do you believe?
Yeah.
It's kind of the crux of it. Well, to me it kind of makes sense. I bet Republic Media can validate that there's.
Like the Republic would probably disagree with that one.
So Dave,
Say still print this many.
what you're asking about is their stat was about time, not about reach. So radio still reaches everyone, so does newspaper. But guess what? The people who are spending 1% of their time with newspaper are focused and they're not fragmented. So that may be worthy of the 10% of additional media spend, right? Because I've got a captive user who's reading the newspaper, not with his phone and in front of the TV and doing 5 things at the same time. So the time spent is not a measure of quality of time spent. That helps.
You had a question, Stephen? Oh, that was it. Gotcha.
I have a comment kind of in response to WordPress.
Uh-huh.
There's a perception that WordPress is slow because probably a lot of WordPress sites are self-cited, someone just threw one up. But I've seen with compression and minification and static file caching in combination with CDN, I get WordPress sites to load in less than a second.
You're not using a template though.
Custom-built theme.
Custom-built themes. Yeah.
Or templates even. They'll work with those too. But I've also seen, WordPress has an AMP plugin.
Yep.
And that gives you an AMP version of every one of your blog posts. And I've seen even on my own site that traffic to those AMP pages skyrocketing.
Awesome. So you're finding, because this is a good question, because when you go through the test your site with Google, they give you a recommendation. They essentially give you a blueprint on how to fix your pages. But we found that when it comes to the theme, some themes really suck, and they got a lot of stuff built in, and you can't go in and hack the theme without saying, "Oh, next time the theme is updated, you're not going to get the security plugin and this and that," and you're essentially on your own. And most people get scared of that. So I appreciate that. So custom theme WordPress works. Watch out for the theme that you're using because it's really going to kill you sometimes. And you can, like we took a client from 20-second load speed on a WordPress. We've got them down to 7 seconds. And that's as far as we can go with the theme without hacking it. I know, yeah. Thanks, good question. Yes? Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of depends on what the buyer journey is, because somebody asked a question about what wording should we use for a message, and it was kind of like that spa thing. You know, they were talking about, they were selling a spa, the benefit of it when people were saying, "I want it now." Yeah, they're ready to go. Don't send them anywhere else. But if it was the buyer journey where they're like, the benefit of a spa, learn more here, sign up for a newsletter, totally, yeah. Now we want to nurture them because they're not quite ready yet. And, you know, and it's also the price. You know, some people are selling, you know, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 things, and, you know, yeah, they need more info. You know, think of the buyer journey in the funnel there. You're kind of teasing them with really goodness. And then you're like, okay, here's my Yugo. Good luck. Any other questions? Hey, once again, it was an honor to present to you all. Thank you for coming tonight.